Dat to the Who Dat Nation. Welcome to the Who Dat Say podcast, your podcast for the New Orleans Saints right here on the KB Radio Network. I am your fellow Who Dat and host Kevin Reed, and here we go. Week 2 preview. The New Orleans Saints, who are currently 0-1, will take on the San Francisco 49ers, who are 1-0. So we're going to preview this upcoming matchup that takes place this Sunday, September the 14th, in the Caesars Superdome at 12 noon. This is a game that's, I didn't want to go this route. Honestly, I just wanted to ride the wave this season, just soak up the fun, if you will, and enjoy the development of this young team. But I'm forced now. I feel I'm forced, and I guess it's the Who Dat in me that's taking over. I'm forced to make judgment calls here for those who are in leadership positions over there on airline. I watched that game again, the week 1 matchup versus the Arizona Cardinals. And, after viewing that game, I'm left even more confused than I was watching it live last Sunday. I didn't understand why the Saints lost that game. I really don't. And this is coming from somebody who has zero expectations for the New Orleans Saints this season. I know what it is. I'm not crazy. I'm not expecting the Saints to shock the world. But when you play games like this, when you play teams like this, you're supposed to win. And when you can't pinpoint one single thing your opposing team did to beat you, that's a problem. I can't point out one thing the Arizona Cardinals did to beat the New Orleans Saints last week in the season opener. Yeah, you had a couple of flash plays. The big play to Marvin Harrison Jr. You had a big run that took place, I think, in the second half of that game. But aside from that, what else? I'll wait. What else did the Arizona Cardinals do? You sacked Kyler Murray 5 times. You forced them to field goals. You got them off the field. Defensively, they did their job. So what happened? Well, offensively, the New Orleans Saints played safe football. They played scared. And I don't know. I know the narrative this past week has been Kellen Moore not trusting his starting quarterback in Spencer Rattler. At first, I didn't buy that. I was like, I don't believe that. It's hard for me to, it was hard for me to grasp that at the time because this is the guy you picked, This is the guy that you chose to be your starting quarterback. And so I'm kind of confused as to why you don't trust him or why people believe you don't trust him. Well, like I said, I watched the game again. And upon rewatch, yes, he didn't trust him. That's why those 3 timeouts stayed in his pockets when he went into halftime. That's why Spencer Rattler didn't attempt a ball over 20 yards, maybe 1 or 2 times. No big plays, no splash plays. You didn't trust him to really conduct his offense. And I didn't see too many audibles. Whatever was called was called. Now, to be fair, some of that I put on Spencer Rattler. Spencer Rattler should have took some chances. He shouldn't have played scared because he's in a position to where he doesn't want to lose the game. He doesn't want to make that big mistake because he knows he's on borrowed time. He knows it's just a matter of time. He's 1 play away from being yanked for the rookie because that's what everybody wants. And so he's trying to play perfect football. There's no such thing. Tom Brady wasn't perfect. Drew Brees, people, was not perfect. Eli Manning, Peyton Manning, none of these quarterbacks were perfect. You were going to make mistakes, but you have to take chances. It's feast or famine, and I know that comes with time. I use the example of Drew Brees. Drew Brees in San Diego, average quarterback, maybe slightly above average in San Diego. He comes to the Saints, first ballot Hall of Famer. It took time and the right situation, right coach, and all these other elements to take place. Two different quarterbacks, two completely different quarterbacks. Now, Spencer Rattler last season, 7 starts, didn't look all that good, didn't look great, but he was hampered with a makeshift offensive line. He didn't have starters at receivers. They were bringing in people from the from the street to play. It was madness. The team was just falling apart at the seams, and so I didn't put much credit into that. I really looked at the game against the Arizona Cardinals last week as his first official start in the league, because everything, he had a complete and total training camp. He had all week, with coming up with a game plan, or 2 weeks, however long it was, to come up with a game plan for this game, get prepared for this game. This was his start. It was time to rock and roll. And did he play bad? No. Was he horrible? No. Does he deserve to get yanked or even be in a conversation to get yanked? No. He didn't do anything to warrant him being on borrowed time. But the climate with just a, I'm not going to say small contingent of who that nation, but there is about a 50-50. They want Tyler Shuck. They ready for Tyler Shuck. Tyler Shuck isn't ready. He isn't ready. You may be ready. He isn't ready. Let's calm down. Let's pump the brakes. As you can see, Spencer Rattler isn't 100% ready. And he's been here a year longer. It takes time, people. I know a lot of people look around the league. You see Jaden Daniels doing what he do. You see how Jalen Hurts popped up his first start. He took advantage of it, but he didn't start immediately. What's his name? Patrick Mahomes didn't start immediately. It takes time. Just relax. But Kellen Moore, it's some of those decisions that were made last week, they just did not fly right with me. And going back to my opening statement, whereas this is the week that I'm going to determine what type of coach Kellen Moore is. Will he change? Will he adjust? Will he do things differently? I saw the defense adjust in that game. At halftime, that defense changed. Now, they were playing decent in the first half. They gave up, like I said, a couple of big plays, but for the most part, they played decent. They constantly putting pressure on Kyler Murray. They were all over the field, flying, tackling, got better as the game went on. They made adjustments. So the defense is good. Defense gets a pass. The offense, man, the offense was just boring to watch. It was like watching paint dry last week when the Saints offense took the field. But that was last week. This week, the New Orleans Saints will seek to get their first win of the season when they continue their, what is this? I don't know who made this schedule, but it's the strangest schedule I have ever seen the New Orleans Saints play. The Saints will play the second of 3 NFC West opponents in the first 3 weeks. We played Arizona last week, San Francisco this week, and next week we play the Seattle Seahawks. Unfortunately, we got to travel all the way to Seattle for that game. But we'll cross that bridge when we get to it. Sunday will mark the 79th regular season meeting between the Saints and the Niners. This is the 79th meeting. That's crazy. Well, it's not really crazy because if you remember, if you're old enough, if you have a little season on you, you know that the Saints and the 49ers were once division rivals in the old NFC West. That was back in the day, boy. That was with Joe Montana and not Reggie, but Roger Craig's and yeah, all that good stuff. It was a time. It was a rough one going through those years when the Saints had to play the 49ers twice a season, when the 49ers were at their peak, when it was a dynasty over there. But the Saints were really competitive against them, especially at that in the 80s when we had the Dome Patrol. But ultimately, you know, we were the Saints. The overall record, ironically, the 49ers, of course, is leading the series with a record of 49 victories, 27 losses, and 2 ties. The Saints, on a good note, if you want to put a little spin to this thing, the Saints have won 6 of the last 10 meetings, regular season that is, against the 49ers. So, hey, that's a good stat. But the big story going into this game is injuries. The injury report is not good for either team, and it has been a deciding factor in a lot of things, namely the point spread. The point spread for this game, coming out of Sunday, Monday morning, was 7.5, of course, in favor of the 49ers. After all of the injuries started piling up from week 1, where the 49ers lost George Kittle, and we're going to go over the injury report, but George Kittle and Brock Purdy and all this here, that dropped to 1.5, at least at the time of this record. It could have dropped more, or probably gained a point or two, who knows. But even with the 49ers injury, which is a laundry list, their injury report, they're still favored against the Saints. It's heartbreaking in some sense, and downright disrespectful, to be honest. I mean, we're at home. We're at home, and it didn't matter. That didn't sway Vegas from having us the dogs going into this game. But I've been tiptoeing around it. Let's go over the injury report, because, yeah, 49ers has a lot of injuries, and the Saints have their fair share as well. Let's start with the 49ers. Of course, the big one, Brock Purdy, their quarterback. He was listed as doubtful, but he has officially been ruled out with a turf toe. I think they said 2 to 5 weeks possibly for Brock Purdy to be out, but he will definitely be out this week against the New Orleans Saints. That will catapult Matt Jones to the starting quarterback position for the 49ers, making that his first start as a Niner. I don't know where to go with that. I don't know if that's a good or bad thing for the New Orleans Saints. So, and I don't know if we're going to get Alabama Matt Jones or New England Matt Jones. I don't know which one we're going to get. So we'll have to tune in and watch. Jordan James, their running back, was listed as questionable. Jordan Watkins, their wide receiver, is listed as questionable. And George Kittle, their star tight end, he hasn't been listed anything on the one that I'm reading, but I think I read that he is ruled out for this Sunday's game with a calf injury. Speaking of calf injuries, let's move over to the Saints injury report, and let's start with Chase Young, who has been dealing with a calf injury since the first practice of the regular season. While preparing for the Arizona Cardinals, Chase Young injured his calf. He didn't play last week. He didn't practice none this week, and he has been ruled out against the 49ers. I don't know what's up with the calf. You know, they're real secretive, and I don't understand why they're so secretive. If he hurt, he's hurt. It's all right. It happens. It's football. And just give us a timetable. Give us a time frame when he's going to return. But he's definitely out Sunday. Also out this Sunday is, of course, Julian Blackmon. Not only this Sunday, but every Sunday for the remainder of this season, when he's on IR with that torn labrum shoulder injury. I think he's he's either had surgery this week or preparing for surgery in the coming days. But he is definitely out for the season, which stinks. I was super excited for Julian Blackmon, and he looked good before he went out hurt. He was looking good, man. I am so upset by that, you know. But there's a glimmer of hope because our rookie Jonas Sinker, who what round did we get him in? The fourth, fifth round, somewhere up in there, from Virginia, really impressed me in preseason. He really was flying all over the field. He was in on a lot of big tackles. I think he even wasn't he the one that caught that pick in the first preseason game? I can't remember, but I know he was everywhere. He was all over the field during the preseason. I thought that was a winner, a real winner of a pick that we got him, judging by those couple of games that we saw him. But now it's scrap in time now. It done got real, and he is elevated to the starting safety position with Blackmon being out. Also out, who was ruled out, was Trevor Penning, our offensive tackle. Hadn't played this season with that toe injury, I'm guessing turf toe or something. But he was ruled out as well. Questionable, Italiense Fuaga, he is questionable with that knee injury. And Valdez Jones Jr., our running back, also punt returner, kick returner. He was dealing with a knee injury. He was limited all week, but he is expected to play this Sunday. So we're not as bad, you know, as the 49ers, but it's still bad enough because I'm one of my most exciting things going into this season that I was super looking forward to was Chase Young in this defense. I wanted to see him in this defense, and judging by how the defense plays or had played last week, man, Chase Young would have been a big help in that game. I'm not saying he would have been a deciding factor as far as wins and losses, but I would have loved to have seen what type of impact he could have made. And I guess we're just going to have to wait another week to see what type of impact he can make for this defense. But speaking of defense, let's look at some key matchups defensively that we need to watch this Sunday versus the 49ers. The Saints and their blitz rate. This is something that has not been seen in New Orleans for a while, especially under Dennis Allen in his style of play. Blitzing. Every now and then, Dennis Allen would blitz. Judging by last week, and if last week was any indication, under Brandon Staley, our defensive coordinator, if there's any indications of how this defense will fly around, they're going to do a lot of blitzing. You know, I think he plans to push the 49ers offensive line from different pressure looks. Now, let's not forget, Brandon Staley knows this offense over there. In Frisco, he was the defensive coordinator for the Rams, who are division rivals to the San Francisco 49ers. So he knows this team, and he knows what it takes to beat this team. And so that's a great thing. It's good to have that bit of knowledge. The Saints last Sunday, they blitzed 45.1% of the time, and they finished with a defensive EPA of negative 0.11. That is 11th best in week one. The blitzes, the 45.1, that was the 10th highest in week one. So if we're going to go by last week's indication, yeah, I think they're going to get him. And he did that against a running mobile quarterback. Normally when you blitz a running mobile quarterback like that, you get burnt. And it was a couple of times Kyler Murray got loose, but for the most part, they kept him in check. Now you're going up against a Matt Jones, who, you know, he's not a statue, but he's not Kyler Murray. And so you got a chance to double that sack total that you racked up last week. if last week was any indication. Another key, and I guess this is probably the biggest one, even though I have more to go, but this is probably the number one key, is the San Francisco's rush attack. And we know that Kyle Shanahan, that is the bread and butter of this offense. You know, people think that is just high powered, you know, running gun offense that he runs. Is really based on the run. For years, you know, his dad did it. Now he does it, but he just does it in innovative ways. And now Arizona's rush attack was poignant, you know, because you had Kyler Murray, you had James Conner, you had Trey Benson, who had that big run. So it was kind of a three-headed monster, you know, that that burnt the Saints on the ground. However, the styles of the run offense is completely different when you compare Arizona and the San Francisco 49ers. Primarily as a gap scheme run attack, Arizona utilized this gap scheme, I should say, 44% against the New Orleans Saints defense. That number was good for the third highest in week one. You know, they did a pretty decent job there. Now, the Saints handled it well with a negative 0.17 EPA against gap scheme running. The Saints defense looked excellent, man, last week. A lot of people ain't talking about that. It is frustrating throughout the week. Nobody's talking about how good the defense played. But whatever. This week, on the other hand, this week the Saints will have to contend against Christian McCaffrey. And you can pretty much bet your bottom dollar, $1, that we're going to get a healthy dose of Christian McCaffrey this week with the absence of a Brock Purdy there. Now, no shade on Matt Jones, but I think he's going to, he being Kyle Shanahan, he's going to trust his running game to kind of hide the shortcomings of his backup quarterback, to say the least. But Christian McCaffrey and the 49ers have a 0% gap scheme usage. At least they did last week, while the Saints faced outside zone 8% of the time only. That, you know, that Arizona didn't run an outside zone, whereas 49ers does a lot of outside zone. Now, the Cardinals had the lowest percentage of outside runs in week one. Kyle Shanahan and the 49ers offense will need the rush attack to stabilize in this week. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. The Saints were at bottom 3 defense in week one against the outside zone. And so it's going to be a challenge there. You know, it's going to be a challenge there. It's always a challenge when you go up against the likes of a Christian McCaffrey. Also, moving over to our offense, we got to contend with Robert Saleh's defense. Robert Saleh, we all remember, he was the defensive coordinator of the 49ers some years back, left to be the head coach of the Jets, was unceremoniously let go, returned to the 49ers to be the defensive coordinator yet again. At 66.7%, the 49ers were in a single high safety look at the 9th highest in Seattle. Now, Seattle, to their defense, has a different style of offense than the New Orleans Saints. Now, the defense finished with the highest EPA from the look of negative 0.84. On the flip side, the Saints were the most successful against the high or the single high looks last week. As much as we want to rag on Mr. Rattler, he did find a way to be successful against that look. Arizona showed a single safety at the lowest percentage. That's 40.4%. But the Saints had the 11th highest EPA against those looks at 0.17. And so all the dinking and dunking, yeah, That's how you get them. Now, another way you can get them, which the Saints ran away from, and I guess that's where the criticism come in at. Saints didn't attack it with the run. They didn't attack it with the screen passes and, things of that nature to kind of catch them off guard. That's what I would have did, but what I know, I'm not a head coach. That's why I'm sitting behind this microphone instead of on the sideline with a headset. But Salah's defense may face a top 10 team out of 11 personnel in New Orleans. The seventh highest 11 personnel usage belongs to the New Orleans Saints after week 1 with a percentage of 72.6. The 49ers faced 11 personnel only 49% of the time, but posed the fourth highest EPA at negative 0.16 against Seattle last week. The Saints will attack on the ground with gap schemes. They did that last week with a percentage of 36.4, fifth highest in the league. Fifth, believe it or not. And the 49ers are sixth highest or have the sixth highest EPA against gap on Sunday with a negative 0.45. Swinging back over to the defense of the New Orleans Saints, they didn't face any motion against the Arizona Cardinals last Sunday, but when they did, they struggled. They did struggle, allowing an EPA of 0.13, while defending motion was closer to the bottom of the league at number 19. The Saints allowed an explosive play 4.5% of the time on Sunday, which is the fifth highest in week 1. Motion, whether you know it or not, you're about to learn today. Motion is a staple in Kyle Shanahan's offense. And so the chess match is on between Kyle Shanahan and Brandon Staley. We struggled last week against motion. We're going to get nothing but motion, whether we want it or not. After working on the same staff for a bit in 2024, this matchup will be very, very interesting. Staley's philosophy of employing two high safety looks with the defense continued on Sunday. The highest percentage of safety looks against Arizona was too high at 37.8%. Brandon Staley tried to limit explosive pass plays with two high safeties, but running successfully against those looks will open up play action and pass opportunities for the 49ers if we're not careful. I know it's only 1 week, but hey, we're still going to do it. Season leaders of each team, let's begin with passing. Of course, Spencer Rattler is our leading passer. He went 27 of 46 for 214 yards, no touchdowns, no interceptions. Brock Purdy is the league leader for the 49ers. Last week, he was 26 of 35, 2 touchdowns and 2 interceptions for 277 yards. For the New Orleans Saints rushing attack, our leading rusher was Alvin Kamara, 11 carries for 45 yards and a touchdown, which was his 1,000th touchdown of his career. Congratulations to AK-41. For the San Francisco 49ers, their leading rusher is, of course, Christian McCaffrey, who are, look, those two are, I don't know, man. They always compared, especially, when Christian McCaffrey was in Carolina. They always compared these two, and rightfully so. They both are dynamic running backs. Christian McCaffrey last week, 22 carries, 69 yards. Leading receiver for the 49ers last week was Purcell, or however you pronounce his name, 4 catches for 108 yards. For the New Orleans Saints, our leading receiver, it was Juwan Johnson. He had 8 catches, should have been 9, for 76 yards. Sack leader for each team, Nick Bosa for the 49ers with 1 sack. for the New Orleans Saints, Cam Jordan, people, with 1.5 sacks last week against the Arizona Cardinals. Our leading tackler is Demario Davis with 9 tackles for the 49ers. Fred Warner with 8 tackles. In case you wanted to know the rankings after 1 week of football, the New Orleans Saints offense, let's begin with passing. The Saints ranked 14th in the lead in passing yards per game with 208 yards, 16th in the lead rushing yards per game, I should say, with 107 yards, and 17th in the league with yards per game total with 315 yards. That basically puts Saints middle of the pack amongst the league, and smoke them if you got them. It is what it is. We'll see moving forward how much the Saints numbers dip or rise throughout the year. My prediction for Sunday's game against the 49ers, once again, I don't know. It's a question mark, bruh. It's so many injuries on the 49ers side. Logically, you would love to say, the Saints should win that game. But Saints should have won last week, too. But I'm not prepared. I'm not ready to put myself out there yet. I'm not ready to say the Saints should win. They should win. I'll just leave it at that. They should win. It's just a matter of execution, man. The Saints, everything's there for the New Orleans Saints to win. The Saints aren't a bottom of the barrel team as a lot of these NFL analysts have them. They're not. I seen it. You look at last Sunday's game, the Saints are a talented team, good team. They just got to put the pieces together. And I don't want to rush them into doing it. I just want them to do it, seize the opportunities when they're there. I don't care if you lose. The loss didn't bother me. It was more or less how they lost. The fact that they could have won. If you put up a good effort and it's a superior team that you're across the field from, hey, dap off, give a bro hug and move on. But if it's against a team that has no business coming into your house and winning a game, a la the Arizona Cardinals, yeah, that's where you kind of like, oh, come on, man. We got to do better. But the 49ers are a good team, well-coached team. Even with the injuries, they're still well-coached. Now if if Kyle Shanahan was on the injured reserve list, then I'll feel better. But I'm not confident enough to go out there and say, yeah, we're going to squash them. We're going to beat them. Yeah, I'm not ready for that. But Saints should win. But I would love to know, what do you think of this week's matchup against the 49ers? Do you think those injuries on the 49ers side is just insurmountable? It's just too much to overcome from them to go on the road and play this team that is desperate for a win? And do you think the Saints will take this opportunity to build from last week, neutralize their mistakes, build upon that, and come out better and less skittish than we did last week? I would love to know your thoughts. Email the show, kbradiopodcast@gmail.com. You can also search for the show on all social media platforms. Just search for the KB Radio Network. Also, don't forget about YouTube. Subscribe to the KB Radio Network channel and like this video if you don't mind. Don't forget about the 5 stars, the reviews, and sharing this show if you're listening on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, iHeartRadio, wherever you are currently listening to the Who Dat Say podcast here on the KB Radio Network. Everybody, thank you for joining me for this preview of the Week 2 matchup between the New Orleans Saints and the San Francisco 49ers this Sunday, September 14th, 12 noon on Fox. Until then, I'm going to be screaming to the top of my lungs, who dat?